then you'll have the opportunity to do that.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Let's just wait a couple more minutes and give people time to call in, and we'll start maybe at 4:33.
Okay. How is everyone today?
Hi.
Doing pretty good. How are you doing, Ann?
Oh, hi, Yolanda. Good. Good. Nice to see you.
Oh, hey, Yolanda.
Hi, Vadim.
Hi, Yolanda. I'm here if y'all need anything, but I'm staying off camera.
All right, let's begin. Welcome everybody to the Settlement Agreement and Policy Subcommittee meeting. It's first meeting since Andrew has gone on to bigger and better things in a smaller and maybe not a better town, but it's a nice area. And so we'll kind of take this month by month and keep on doing the good work that has begun by the Settlement Agreement Committee. As just beginning here, I don't see too many new people on here, but let's just do a round of introductions here. So my name is Vadim Mazursky. I've been on PCCEP for a little bit over a year, currently the Secretary of PCCEP. The next person on my list here is, well, let's go with the members. Ann.
Hi, everyone. Ann Campbell, new member to PCCEP. Thanks for being here with us.
And Lakayana.
Lakiana, PCCEP co-chair. Happy to be here. Happy to see all of y'all.
And Yolanda.
Hi, Yolanda Salguero. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm on the Youth Subcommittee as co-chair.
And then for the staff members here, we have Judith.
We also have Amy.
Hi, everybody. Sorry,
Yeah,
Amy,
Amy.
next to you. Judith Mowry, one of the staff members in the team.
Oh, hey, Amy. Sorry, I didn't see you on there. Yeah, Amy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Amy Anderson here, Chair of the Behavioral Health Subcommittee. Yeah, welcome everyone.
And Claudia.
Hi everyone, I'm Claudia. I'm the project assistant for PCCEP.
And we have Portland Copwatch.
Hi, it's Dan Handelman with Portland Copwatch. He, him pronouns. Thanks.
Hi, Mr. Handelman. Welcome. We have, it looks like Albert.
Hi, this is Anika Bent Albert for the City of Portland.
Hi, Nika. Ann Brayfield. And Anna, you're on mute if you want to just say a couple words. Take off mute or we'll, okay. Can you hear us, Ann? Okay. Well, Ann Brayfield is here as well. I think you'll know Ann. Barbara Rainish. Hey, Barb, you want to introduce yourself? You're on mute.
Yeah, I was trying to decide what I was going to say. Hi, my name is Barb. I use she, her pronouns, and I prefer being called Barb and not by my full name. Anyway, citizen and applicant, I guess, and member or participant with Behavioral Health Advisory Council and Amy's right-hand man.
Thank you, Barb. Barbara Obczynski.
Hi, she, her, and Portland Cop Watch.
Welcome. Leah. And Leah, you're on mute.
My name is Leah Fort, and I'm a community member.
Beautiful paintings behind you there, Leah.
Thanks.
Okay. Mary Claire.
Hi there, Mary Claire Buckley, Police Bureau, both the Inspector General overseeing policy and force and DOJ compliance.
Welcome, Mary Claire. And Michelle.
Michelle DeShazer, community member.
Hi, Michelle. All right. So in today's agenda, we have 3 items for those that were able to access the agenda ahead of time. I just need 1 second here.
Did we miss anybody in introductions? Does everyone introduce themselves that's here today? I think we're okay.
Okay.
Oh, Treby's here.
Oh, hi, Treby.
Hi, everyone. Oh, no. Cat problems.
Okay.
Good to see you, Treby. It's been a while since we had a chance to chat. Do you want to introduce yourself at all to everybody else here? I think most everybody
Sure.
knows you. Mm-hmm.
Sure. I'm Treby Thomas, and I'm a community member.
So today's agenda includes next steps for the Truth and Reconciliation Model, PCCEP inclusion in the city code, and a recommendation for officers to volunteer in the community. Since Luciana is working on the PCCEP inclusion in the city code, let's take that as an initial matter unless there's any objections from any of the other people attending the meeting today. All right, hearing no objections. So one of the mayor's 19-point plan for police reform is including PCCEP in city code. So it continues after the settlement agreement. Right now, certainly PCCEP is tasked with certain items relating to the settlement agreement, and then just generally providing outreach efforts between the community and the police bureau, and consulting the police bureau on their engagement plan, as well as providing some input on policies for the police bureau. So it's prime importance that we have everything coded within city code, because then obviously it allows PCCEP to continue after the settlement agreement is concluded, within a year of the conclusion at least, as well as provides it with funding and such things. So it doesn't stop at the will of any one of the commissioners, and including the mayor. So the next steps, just want to discuss with you all the next steps. Right now, I was looking at the city code for the Citizen Review Committee, which is not analogous to us, but it is at least somewhat similarly situated with certain responsibilities within the city code, and at least having that as a template. There are other entities around the country that perform a similar duty to PCCEP, sometimes a little blend of PCCEP and the Citizen Review Committee, and I kind of try to look at some of those in the Bay Area and some other places where there's analogous community organizations, and just to get a sense of how they were codified in their respective cities. And so I was thinking of the next steps would be to reach out to the city attorneys and see who it is that's specifically involved in drafting the city code language for PCCEP, ascertain whether any work has been done yet, and if work has not been done yet, perhaps take a first stab at initially outlining what we think the city code should include. You know, I'm a lawyer, and I think it would not be too difficult. It would take a few hours, I suppose, but it really is sort of a brief enumeration in the city code. Don't want to repeat any work that's already been done, so I was thinking of reaching out to the city attorneys first. And Lakiana has proposed 9 items that he would like to include. Some of those items may overlap the work of other committees that the city already has, and so we'll need to discuss that with the city attorney to see to what extent we can have such things as subpoena power and things like that, or power to compel testimony, which would be important under some circumstances, but perhaps equally as important for the CRC, or more important for the CRC if that were to happen, or any body that supplants the CRC in the future. In any case,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to break in. Can
Yes.
you tell everyone what the CRC is?
yes.
For some of those that might not know it.
Okay. So the Citizen Review Committee is an organization that was formed, I want to say 10 years ago. And Mr. Hellman can probably correct me, it might be 11 years or something like that. But in any case, it was formed to hear complaints against the police bureau. The IPR, which is the Independent Police Review within the auditor's office, receives those complaints, and along with internal affairs, works up those complaints, interviews related parties, the individuals that are named in the complaint. And CRC was formed in 2001. Thank you.
Yeah, and then can I just add one other quick thing?
Yes.
So I understand the kind of the framework you're talking about, and I do know, we know that Lakiana has spoken with the city and has come up with those points that he wants to put into the document, and I'd like to kind of bring those up so that we could kind of talk about those. Is that what you're thinking of doing as well, or?
Yeah, I was actually looking up those points in the email, so thank you. Lakiana, I don't know whether you want me to do this, or since these were brought up by you, if you want to just kind of outline what those points are.
Yeah, let me pull them up myself.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, Amy.
I'm curious to kind of understand where the Citizen Review Committee and PCCEP would like run parallel, and where would they overlap?
So generally speaking, and yeah, I'll do my best to answer the question. I was gonna see if anybody else wanted to comment on like Portland Cop Watch, but maybe in public testimony. So the CRC hears complaints against the police bureau. It reviews complaints, and also members of the CRC Citizen Review Committee sit on the police review board, which hears such things as use of force and use of deadly force events with the police bureau. It's more of an investigatory body, and it hears almost like a hearing where if somebody disagrees with the resolution of their complaint, they can bring it up before the Citizen Review Committee and have a hearing on that complaint. We don't really have specifically like an oversight power over the police bureau. The PCCEP sort of forming documents entail helping with public engagement, as well as providing feedback on policies. And so that is the one part that does overlap between the CRC and PCCEP is providing feedback on policy. Both are tasked with the ability to do that, reviewing past policies. The CRC also can do things like auditing well, the auditor work group hasn't happened in a while, but it is an important work group in theory for the CRC to audit some of the things that IPR does and the process there as well. So I think when PCCEP was formed, it was in the settlement agreement, CRC and PCCEP are both mentioned as part of the settlement agreement and the duties that they have. The CRC was already there. PCCEP was formed as part of the settlement agreement. But basically it's oversight over the police versus engagement and then just general policy reviews.
Okay, one more quick question.
I'm going to have to jump off this call, so just to let you guys know.
Well, can we have Lakiana share his 9 points and then we could get back to that question, Amy? Would that be possible due to the time crunch?
Thank you. Okay, Andrew, do you have a few minutes or do you have to pop off now?
Yep, I can just do it real quick. So just basically context. So, this is something that the DOJ settlement is coming and going. It's still in effect for a year, and then after that, there's not a plan in place that protects PCCEP. So from my perspective, this is top on our list. We have worked so hard in the last going into our third year, and we have to do what we can to make sure that work is preserved and continued. The mayor most recently spoke about this on Monday and said that this is his priority. So it's not like we're pushing a rock up a hill. He's on board. So we just need to get it done and put in there. So the points that I raised, his office reached out and asked, what were my thoughts on it? And so I provided 9 things. And I'll just read them real quickly. So number 1 was PCCEP selects its own members. Right now it's done through the mayor. But to be truly independent, as the mayor states we are, we need to be able to select our own members. Number 2, PCCEP have a role in engaging community members to review new cohorts of officers. So being able to have an opportunity, like, when you have a new class of recruits, like, getting together community members that can talk to them, review them, and, have some process in them being hired. Number 3, PCCEP having a role in hiring all top-level command staff, including the police chief, assistant, and deputy chiefs. So having our members in on those hiring decisions and panels. Number 4, PCCEP have a spot at the negotiation table as a community representative during contract negotiations with the union. Number 5, PCCEP be embedded into the universal review process for all PPB recommendations that impact the community. The universal review process, if there's going to be a new policy change for PPB, is 2 public opportunities for public to comment and weigh in. And by making a 3rd one, which would be PCCEP, that would allow us to be a part of that process without us having to seek out the directives. They would automatically run through a PCCEP meeting. And so community members would automatically have more of a chance to hear from them. Clarify and strengthen language around the PPB's ability to consider our recommendations. So when we pass recommendations, it's kind of unclear what exactly the Portland Police Bureau has to do. How much do they have to consider our recommendations? So reviewing that language and strengthening it. Compelling officer testimony was one that I put on there. I would change that now. There's a lot of conversations around other, you know, restructuring the current accountability process, and having had further conversations, I think that that would be a better space for paid individuals to have that power and to, you know, that can really spend the time for that. Number 8, having power in disciplining officers. So I think being a part of those disciplinary hearings, and that's part of the internal police reviews, independent police reviews purview. But I think having PCCEP connected to that would be important. And then last, and certainly not least, increasing the PCCEP stipend, which is currently $120. The work we do, you can't put a price tag on. The work that we are moving right now in the city, I think is indispensable. So, you know, increasing that stipend for us to $500, though, would be very important. So I want PCCEP to move quickly on this process. Like I said, the mayor has already spoken about this several times, so I want us to make it happen. I don't think it's something that needs to be dragged out. I'm asking for staff support on this too. You know, PCCEP can present these, but I think it will be helpful for the staff of PCCEP to work with the mayor's office and kind of get those logistics together. Like, hey, like, what's the timeline? What do we have to do to make this happen? Like, do we need to come testify? Can we get on a city council agenda in the next month and strike while the iron is hot? I just want to thank the mayor for continuing to publicly voice his support for this as recently as this past Monday.
Thank you, Lakiana. I know that we talked about talking about this in more depth at our next meeting at the end of the month. But I'm just kind of wondering how we want to facilitate this moving forward. I know that time is of the essence, but I'm just kind of wondering about like how you came up with the stipend amount, and in these times of tight budgets, I'm wondering if that's, you know, I'm just kind of wondering about the thinking about that.
Yeah, I just arbitrarily came up with it, to be 100% honest. I have, man, I don't care how tight their budget is. They need to find this money. You know, we're doing too much work. They can find it, you know, the same way we can get money for PPB, the same way we can get money for anything else. You know, they'll find a way to get that money. That's my thoughts on it. And again, you know, I'm all about fiscal responsibility, but this is not money that's going to be going to waste. So we would be wondering, you know, do those individuals deserve it? Is it going to good use? Absolutely, 100% yes. Just my thoughts.
Amy, you have a question?
Yeah, first I want to make a statement that for folks on SSI, $500 would not allow them to participate because it would wipe out their disability. Number 2, I'm curious about some of the areas that you spoke of, and I was going to ask Mary Claire, can you kind of like go over which one of those 9 items do you see as the most feasible for PCCEP? No, just the ones that you think we could really do.
Well, I guess before I even get into that, Lakiana, just for clarity's purpose, you put these out and talk about the mayor's support. I think it's important for the member, you know, for the community, for the committee to know, have you talked to the mayor directly about these 9 proposals, and is it your representation that he's already bought off on these, or just the fact that he's going to codify and these are ones you're going to propose?
Yes. So, you know, I spoke with Nicole and she took down these 9. So when I'm saying that the mayor is supporting codifying PCCEP, I'm not saying these are the 9 that
Right. Okay. So just so the committee knows, and ultimately the whole committee knows, that the city has not bought off on all these 9 recommendations.
And can I just also add that I also would like PCEP members, if they have other ones they would like to add or change, like I spoke from my behalf as far as what I would like to see for the committee, but I think what I would like to see is the committee make a final decision, like these are the 9, or we want to alter them slightly or add or change, whatever. So yes, thank you for that clarification.
Then I'm going to go back to my original question. Is this group going to be designed by a charter, by bylaws? How exactly is this codify process work when we're setting up like basically a new process? What's going to be the lead? How's the documents going to present? I'm unfamiliar with the process of codifying, so I'd like to know. I'd like to learn.
Hi, this is Anika Bent Albert. I work with Tracy Reeve, the city attorney, and our office will be working with the mayor's office in this legislation. So that's my update regarding that piece.
So Amy, what happens is a city council or the mayor has to promote an ordinance. Then he asks the city attorney to draft it. So Vadim, with all due respect, I think if you have your recommendations, that's one thing, but to draft it, that's the city attorney's job.
Okay.
And what they would do is draft what the mayor, directs them to do, and then it would come before city council for a vote as to whether that city charter would be changed in order to, make the PCEP a permanent institution of the city.
Thank you.
And I agree, Mary Claire. I think, there is some room to make recommendations, and, if they're certainly, we want to be involved in this to whatever extent possible, and we haven't heard anything yet. So, if someone needs to take a lead, we'd be willing to do that. But yeah, we'll wait to see what the city attorney has to say.
Well, you need to make your proposal first.
Okay, take care,
The city attorney is not going to act until they get direction from the mayor as to which one of those recommendations he wants to include in his ordinance. And to Amy's point, there are issues with some of those recommendations that at least have to be reviewed by the city attorney. It's just not that cut and dry that you can just put somebody in the bargaining unit, for example, or whatever. So all of these recommendations would have to be reviewed by the city attorney to see what legal impediments there might be to their implementation, and what, if anything, could be done if in fact the mayor wanted to, get over the barriers, what action would have to be taken in order to do that.
Also, as a group, we need to talk further about this. As Lakiana said, and Yolanda noted in the chat, that he has given these to members, and they have reviewed them, but we haven't talked about it as a group.
And when would you think would be a good time to talk about it? During one of these subcommittee meetings or the full meeting?
Well, I think, weren't they talking about it at our next full meeting? Wasn't that?
This will be brought up during the next full meeting as well. It seemed like if PCEP is going to take some action on this, it'll begin with the settlement agreement policy committee, whatever the main decision will be as to how we go about it, if we do take a role. So I just wanted to kind of put this out there, but we will be discussing it at the full meeting as well. And then
that's good.
And then go from there. Certainly within these 9 recommendations, there's some that I think will raise flags, and then there's other ones that I do think have merit and we can get agreement on. So we'll see.
How would you like to proceed on that?
I just wanted to hear people's thoughts on it at this point in time. So, we have both a few committee members here as well as the public. And now that we have the 9 points out there, let's just open it up to conversation as a whole. First, anybody on PCEP have any thoughts above and beyond what was discussed about the stipend? Any other thoughts about these 9 points?
Looks like Amy has a question.
Yeah, you must have been reading my mind.
You have your hand raised.
No, I did. have my hand raised for, but that's okay. Yeah, what I'm thinking that I would like to learn a lot about is in these recommendations, it sounds like some of them are getting away from the information contained within our purview within the settlement agreement. And so I'm thinking if we want to be kept as a committee, wouldn't it be kind of wiser to review some of those concerns or thoughts in the our material and kind of really move those forward as harder recommendations? There's a lot of good stuff in all of our materials that would make excellent recommendations, and then it wouldn't go outside our box, so to speak, of things that we've been told what we're going to do. Because I don't think they're going to want to rework PCCEP. That doesn't make sense to me. They might let us choose our own members and do a few other things, but wouldn't the totality of PCCEP remain the same in our charge?
Vadim, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. It would remain generally the same. I mean, the reason that PCCEP was started is going to continue. It's just sort of the roles and responsibilities are really up in the air. So one would think that what we do now will continue as it currently stands. But it could also change. It could broaden, it could shrink. The office that we're under, whether it's under the mayor's office or under another branch of another bureau altogether, might change. So the codification it's fairly broad, so it won't be like our bylaws where everything is laid out, but it will have, you know, who we report to, what our responsibilities are, what is the responsibilities of the city in relation to what we do, as I understand things at least. So there's a lot of questions, you know, and it could be as simple as exactly what we do will continue. It could also change.
Thank you.
And I think there was thoughts clearly from Lakiana's 9 points of expanding the role of PCCEP, you know.
Yeah, this would greatly expand it for sure.
Yes.
You know, some of these like disciplining officers and things like that's also involves the union contracts and labor laws, and there's certain things that are kind of will hit some other things that the city attorneys will certainly take into consideration, but yeah, it would definitely broaden it. Would there be any public comment?
Actually, I have a quick comment.
Yes, Joanna.
It kind of goes along with more of, Vadim, what you shared. There's some policies and procedures that I don't think Lakiana was maybe familiar with before you wrote out some of these. So with PCCEP and the one that says, I have a role in hiring all top level command staff, including police chiefs and deputy chiefs, there's already a pretty good process for that. There's already civilians involved in that process, not necessarily obviously PCCEP civilians. So there was a couple of these that I just, I expressed in my response to Lakiana that I don't think Portland Police would like not include us in the process because the civilians are already involved in some of the hiring process. I don't have all my notes in front of me, but I'm just looking at it right now.
And in terms of the disciplining officers, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, that was another one that I provided content on too. That with, I mean, there's HR policies too, so we don't have privilege to some of that information. Yeah, I don't know if there's probably other people on this call that actually can provide a better explanation, but there was just, I just wanted to reiterate that it's not as cut and clear as like the statement is. There's more complicated nuances to if this can actually occur. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. The universal review process, you know, things like that where we can have more of a lead time and more participation in that seems like we can have that discussion go a little further. There's certainly going to be a lot of pushback on, you know, such as the disciplining, especially with the, you know, IPR City Council currently having that role, as you know, with the police chief, of course, and the commissioner, but also the new city charter amendment that Commissioner Hardesty has proposed that would likewise be directly on point with that. So I'm not sure whether there's like a Venn diagram where that would all be possible and the circles would meet, but I'm thinking that's like a separate silo there. Nonetheless, it's, you know, certainly something to be discussed. And then yeah, that process for hiring is a very lengthy process. As Yolanda pointed out, there are civilians on there. I think it's like a month-long process, you know, several days where you have to be involved in interviewing and participating in various activities. And even if we had that, I'm not sure who would have the time commitment to do that on top of all the other work. That being said, maybe there is a role in that as well. So lengthy discussion for sure. Let's see, so I'll go down. Mr. Handelman, would you have any comments?
Yeah, I raised my hand. I think there's a lot of things, as you just said, Mr. Committee Chair, that PCCEP is already asked to do, and they're not able to fulfill all of it. And I would point out that, for instance, the new report from the compliance officer came out a couple of days ago, and it's not even on your agenda as the settlement agreement subcommittee. And it's a very lengthy report, and it talks a little bit about the crowd control situation that's going on out in the streets. And I think that's something that PCCEP should be jumping into, but I'm hoping you have some time to talk about that today. But you know, that being said, this whole review of the oversight system and the power to compel testimony, the power to talk about discipline, those are all things that are already in the purview of the Citizen Review Committee, and I think that whatever happens with them and the oversight process, that should stay in that area. But the great thing that's happened in the last few weeks with the uprisings in the streets is that the PCCEP and the Training Advisory Council and the CRC are talking to each other and sharing ideas about recommendations with each other. And I think if that can be formalized somehow, and you know, perhaps what Ms. Salgaro was saying about the hiring of officers and all that, if you can share your knowledge and experience with the people who are already involved in these things, then you don't have to try to do everything. But what we've envisioned for a long time at CopWatch is all these advisory committees having a formal meeting where you can share with each other. So that, I think that's something that you should think about putting into the city code when you codify PCCEP. Otherwise, I think that, you know, generally speaking, because it was a long, hard battle getting everything where it is right now, you should just start with getting PCCEP in the code the way it's written. And if you want to expand it, make that step two.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Handelman. And Michelle?
Hi, thank you. I appreciate what Dan just said, particularly the idea of groups starting to talk to each other. And also, I'm always reluctant to, when there's an opportunity that comes up to bring in new ideas and change things, is to do them because you've got, like, maybe you have the mayor on board and he's willing to do it, and it seems like the expedient thing. So, but I hear what Dan's saying about if you've got something that's likely to be moved forward in you know, an ordinance and a changes to the city code, this might be the time to do that. I am concerned, though, about a couple of things. And one is, well, I'd like to see that, I know, Vadim, you said that you had looked at some other jurisdictions and stuff, and I'd like to see what those materials are, what you've discovered through that. I'm concerned that just from an outside perspective, like so many of the advisory bodies that the city has, is that so much of the work is expected to be done by the volunteers, and I don't see that there's really adequate staffing that allows things like, you know, to find the minutes, to find materials, to be able to become engaged with the process, and then therefore actually want to become a volunteer because you're able to figure out what's going on. So I would really want to think about how can things be written in such a way that some staffing assurances would be in there. The other thing is that, you know, PCCEP was, you know, first it was COAB, then it became PCCEP, and it was structured by the framework of the settlement agreement. And now there's an opportunity to do things differently. And so, and it's, you know, intended to be something about community engagement. So I appreciate this idea of, if we can get something pulled off, do it now and then maybe work on it later. But I also am really concerned that if there is not some community engagement between now and the time the mayor would bring something forward for a vote, that it will just appear to be another, I like to call them done deals, where it looks like people in certain positions have the power to engineer things and get them the way they want. And then the people that have been particularly most affected by what's happening with policing in this community really have not had an opportunity to say what it is that they want the body to be able to do and how they want to engage with it. So let me look at my notes. I think that's about it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate those points, and we do need more discussion. I agree with you once we have some specifics about that. And Luciana has put it on our main schedule as well, so I'm not exactly sure what that time will be committed to. Probably a similar discussion as here, but we'll certainly reach out and see where things stand and what the main elements right now are in the plan that will be codified. And then certainly have it before the public as well. And then Barb, you had your hand up for a little while and then it disappeared. Did you want to say something, or should I just go down the schedule or the agenda?
I can say something, but
Okay.
I realized how much time you guys are sort of over. It makes sense to ask for things that you're more likely to get. And then try to slip maybe one other thing in there, because if somebody looks at that list of 9, they're just going to be like, no, 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 no. And before they even get to number 9, they're all no's. That was one thing. And I'm going to save the other thing for later.
Okay, I agree. That's why we need to kind of prioritize things and then make the recommendations in a language that could be incorporated easily if we were to do that. So by our next meeting, probably we'll have a plan going forward. But thank you everybody for your input. The next item in our agenda is the reconciliation model, truth and reconciliation model. And this has been proposed for quite some time, at least since I've been on PCCEP and certainly before that as well. So we passed a recommendation during the last full meeting asking all parties involved to start working on it directly rather than discussing the prospect of working on it. So I was hoping we'd at least have a discussion here as to what the next steps could be. My view is to do some research on what reconciliation models have been out there, and then propose a framework by our next meeting as to what perhaps the scholars have recommended, what has worked in the past, whether it be South Africa or elsewhere, and outline the main points, and then reach out to the mayor's office as well as Portland Police Bureau and start discussing those points in meetings so we can have something within the next 6 months as a framework to actually effectuate. What do y'all think about that timeline, or just generally? Anybody from PCCEP? Okay.
That sounds fine.
Okay. And then anybody from the public?
Well, Mr. Mozerski, this is Dan Handelman again. Mm-hmm. The concern I have is that we're in the middle of an ongoing set of repressions by the police, and use of violence against protesters on a daily basis. And the police, at least the police association head, and to some extent the police chief, haven't acknowledged that the weapons and the tactics that they're using are harming community members. I mean, there's been a lot of focus on what the federal law enforcement did a couple of days ago, but for the Truth and Reconciliation to work, the people who are doing the harms have to be willing to admit that they're harming people. So, you know, I encourage you to move forward, but I also encourage you, while this is going on, to express that to the officers who are currently doing this and speaking in public, so that they are aware that these things are actually causing harm to real people.
Thank you, Mr. Handelman. And it was discussed during our last steering committee, you know, what more response would be needed, whether it's town halls or statements. And so we're still working on it, still addressing the issues, still trying to understand who's doing what. And I think there, as you mentioned, there's some pointing of fingers as well. So trying to, you know, it is being addressed, and that might be part of the reconciliation model, both past as well as the present, to whatever extent that could be encompassed. We've seen Michelle. I see your hand is up as well.
I don't think. Oh, I don't know how I did that.
Okay.
I'm putting my hand down.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Thanks.
Can I say something? I also think, in relation to what you were just saying, Mr. Handelman, is we did put forth a recommendation relative to the use of force or use of tear gas and other things that the police was using. And then the mayor did come out and also say that tear gas could no longer be used. However, there was a time when they could use it, and we're trying to get a little more information about the flexibility that officers have in that. So we're hoping to hear back and hear more information about that.
So would anyone like to volunteer to help do the research? And yes, Debbie?
If I could, you know, yes. As you well know, this was a piece of the community engagement plan that the Bureau adopted. So I'd be happy to talk to you. I had already started doing research. There aren't many cities actually that have done it in the United States, but there are a few that I researched. The success is most often in situations where this is from the ground up, as opposed to being imposed by, you know, government. So I think it would be great if the PCCEP would start, you know, taking a role in that. What you originally had indicated, that, you know, the Bureau and the committee had 3 years to get this going. I understand that you want to expedite that. And so, you know, we're more than happy to, but I can share some of that with you offline and what have you. And then, but the idea originally was that the mayor would at least identify some community members to serve on that commission or what have you, and then, you know, work on what it would look like. So it would, obviously, with the PCCEP's input and stuff. So
yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts and what you've looked into as well. As I mentioned, I just did a broad outline. It seems like there's more of scholarly articles about what that would look like than actual examples of things to follow. Exactly. So, you know, one is understanding what it would look like, and one is just having a time frame, saying, you know, in 3 months we'll do this, and 6 months we'll do that, and, you know, so if we have a time frame, I think that would certainly, the other pieces will fall into place as well. So let's discuss that as well. Trevi?
A couple things. One, if you guys do pursue that, I would love to be a part of that, because I've been reading about that on my own for quite some time. And I just got this book called Commissioning the Past, which took me a while to find because it's out of print and it was expensive, but it's really a good book about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. And what's good about it, it's all scholarly papers, but they also sort of tell the truth about what worked and what didn't work. And so when I'm finished with it, I'd be happy to loan it to you, Vadim, because it's a hard book to find and expensive. And the other thing is there was I think it's even still going on now in Philadelphia. There was a Truth and Reconciliation group specifically about this home of African Americans activists that got bombed literally from the air. And I just read something about that. So I'll see if I can find it again. And if I can, I'll send it to you, because it really talks a lot about the impact on the people actually doing it. Because there's the concept of truth and reconciliation, but then there's the actual reality of the pain and the sorrow and the healing. And it seems like to me, some of the articles I've read, people weren't really prepared for that. So I think it's really important to think about that as much as you can. How do you make that healing and caring for people? Because a lot of people, like in South Africa, when they would tell their story, by the time the story got to the commission, it went from, say, like 5 pages of their most intimate details to just a half a page. And it ended up creating hurt for a lot of people. So I think it's something, when you're asking people to be vulnerable and to look at healing, you really have to do it in the most thoughtful of ways, because it can create more hurt. So, I really encourage taking time on this and really trying to understand what is the best way that now, having not done it, to make sure that people don't get hurt from it.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Really interested to hear what that book has to say and learn more about that. Thanks, Trevi.
Yeah, and any of the other ones I get and things, I'd be happy to share them with anyone.
Yeah. And Trevi, I think you have my email. Well, you certainly have the government email address, but let me know, how we can talk about it later.
Yes, I would love to talk about this, because this is something I've been working on for a couple of years myself, thinking of ways to do it. So I'd really love to be a part of it.
Yeah, thank you, Trevi. I agree. Moving forward with the, keeping do no harm in mind when we're putting this together is very, very important.
Yeah.
And Leah, did I see your hand up?
I think that sounds really interesting. I'd like to be involved in the research. What do you see the timeline for the research part covering? You said.
So I guess I am going to, or the committee will meet with Mary Claire and kind of discuss some of this as to what's already been done and what the planning has involved. And then by next month, I'd like to just have a general layout of what the structure would look like, perhaps, or what the recommended structure might be like, what's worked, some of the issues that Trevi has raised as well about the impact of having something like that. And then perhaps just a general outline of when the next steps, timeframes, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I'd like to help with that.
Okay. Just
if we could get your email, we could communicate with you on that and our process. That'd be great if you could put it in the chat or email it to us privately in the chat.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Okay. And I thought I saw Yolanda on there, but I think she was leaving, so that might have been it. Any other public comment? Yes, Barbara?
Hi, so I'm wondering what the intention is. Is it for emotional healing and everything? Because I saw a video of the one that happened in South Africa several decades ago. And it was very powerful. I just saw a piece of it. But then I read an article by a Black South African who said, it was all well and good. They found out what happened to their families, which is what they wanted. But basically, the structure hadn't changed. And I was wondering, is there any way to, see, I don't know about these things. I might be overly idealistic. Is there some way to do it so that it would result in some improvement in how the police act or something? Thank you. I mean, I don't know if it's possible. I just, you know.
That, you know, everything's on the table at this point in time. I need to do my own research as well to see how focused this would need to be, and you know, yeah, how focused it would need to be, and what kind of models are recommended for, you know, the reasons that these were outlined both in the public engagement piece as well as the recent recommendations. So I agree. This could encompass more, or it could encompass, you know, some of the past activities.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it might be that when you're doing a truth and reconciliation, that's enough, and you just do that. But then have a next step or something. It might be having everything together might diminish it, because the emotional impact is very powerful.
Yeah, exactly. But this will be an ongoing conversation. So, you know, yes, Trevi.
I was just going to say, one of the components, I've been reading some things by Desmond Tutu. You really have to, with this, create a way in which there's forgiveness, where you draw that line of hurt, balance the imbalances, and maybe out of this, there comes a way where something can be created so that it's ongoing. So if someone has an issue with the police, not necessarily, you know, you have all these other groups where they decide how the police get disciplined, and the focus is on the discipline, but maybe something can come out of this where the focus is on healing and understanding, and which would be something entirely separate, where it would be a way that people could talk. You know, I think about, there's a woman that has in the past come to PCCEP meetings who lost her grandson, and she's in a lot of pain and trying to get answers. And this has been going on for a few years for her. You know, how do we address that as a community, and also as a police department? How do we address that together, so that there can be some healing for that person? And so, you know, and like I said, typically it's about discipline as opposed to healing, and the component there has to be forgiveness in it. Okay. And that really does, everything I've read, that's really what lets people be free of the pain.
Thank you, Trevi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item. So I've heard from both community members about the need to have community policing. That means various things, but actually having police members in the community, and instead of totally an enforcement aspect where a crime has been committed and they arrive, but a general presence, so they understand the community feels comfortable with the police officer and has better understanding of what the police are doing in their neighborhoods, and who's doing the actions. And I've also heard from the individuals from the Portland Police Bureau about that same desire, but also time commitments. And one idea that was raised was to encourage officers to volunteer in the very communities that they serve. And I believe this was also something that was mentioned in President Obama's foundational documents for 21st century policing, is having that sort of presence there. An interesting topic, an interesting suggestion I heard was to perhaps have a number of hours of volunteer time actually be sort of counted as comp time or something else. So police are receiving credit for doing the volunteering, encouraging the volunteering as an option, but encouraging the volunteering in exchange for their normal work hours. So up to like 5 hours a month is the number that I heard of police members being able to utilize such time in volunteer capacity, where they're not in uniform, where they're out there helping boys and girls clubs or basketball leagues or something along those lines, and being in the community as a community member, representing the police in some ways, but also getting to know the community. So I just wanted to open that up generally. I thought it was a great idea. I know police are committed with their time and the hiring is going to be curtailed and all these other things. Having said that, though, do you all think that this is feasible, and do you all think that this would benefit people both from the community and the Portland Police Bureau? Let me first open it up to, there's a few raised hands, but any PCCEP members?
I'm wondering what that would look like. I wonder, Mary Claire, if you could comment on that as it relates to.
I guess, Vadim, you know, it comes across as if this is something that isn't happening right now. And I guess I would ask you, before you make a recommendation, maybe to inquire as to how many Bureau members actually are volunteering their time right now. I mean, this is not news. Our members are, are also citizens of this community, and they, do lots of things just like everybody else does. They coach, they, engage in lots of different volunteer things. So this is not something that, is new news at all. And I wouldn't, I wouldn't want you to make it seem like there's no recognition that this is already happening. And so maybe, if you want, once again, then there's, like you said, other issues in terms of the hours they've spent and the fact that, the Bureau just lost umpteen officers as a result of budget cuts. So, they also have, those considerations would have to be taken into account as well, in terms of, 5 hours a month that somebody else, that they wouldn't be doing the job that they would be paid for. So, there are implications for both, in terms of contracts and staffing and things like that. So it sounds great, but number one, I think there's a lot of people that are already doing that on a, a regular basis, just because that's who they are. And
is there a way, sorry to interrupt you, is there a way to get those numbers? Because we have heard that a number of times in our listening sessions that the community would like officers to be more visible in a community way.
Yeah, but when you, but they don't want them to wear their uniform. So how do they, they may be already out there and the community member just doesn't know that they're a police officer, for example. A lot of people aren't going to say, I'm a police officer when I'm coaching my little league or my kids' soccer or the football team or whatever. I just know there's lots of different, members of the Bureau that are involved in lots of different things like everybody with kids has, or what have you. So I don't know.
It seems that's the point, though, is to kind of make those connections in the community as officers, to kind of build the trust and the relationships. So are there numbers? Does the Bureau keep numbers or records of officers that volunteer? How would we get that information?
I don't know that we would. That's their, if they do in their personal time, we can't. I assume we could ask people if they were willing to share that information, but no, that's not required information that we necessarily keep. We keep or try to track the time that they do community engagement as part of their tasks, and sometimes they're in uniform for that, and sometimes they're not, and they're engaging with the community, whether it's in councils or neighborhood meetings or whatever. So also, I don't know, Vadim, if it just means that they have to be doing it, off their work hours, or whether, I wouldn't want to diminish the amount of time that officers spend in community engagement activities, even as part of their job. There's lots of things. At one point when I started this job, there were over 350 different, organizations that the Bureau had something, engagement with at various, whether it's the Rose Festival or this or that, Yeah.
And I know that there's that app where people actually keep track of how much time they're spending as officers out in the community. But this would be more of like recognizing people's ability to participate in the community, that not outside of the uniform, but also capturing that. And within the time and attendance system, perhaps there's a separate category, and then it could be tracked that, the police officers have contributed, a few hundred hours, a few thousand hours probably in their communities. So anyways, that's just a general thought. This was something that was discussed within members of the police bureau. So I don't want to diminish the role that people already do, are out there participating already and contributing their time on their own outside of their police work. But if that could be expanded upon and encouraged in some ways, the federal government has, where I work, there's some sort of incentives to participate in things, food drives and so on, where you're actually, as a federal worker, but still contributing to your neighborhoods and things like that. And it seems like that, that works over time. People contribute money and time. But anyways, let me just move on to some other people here. Amy?
Yeah, something just dawned on me, and that is, I see a two-sided thing here. One, the community wants to know kind of what are we paying for in our police department and what are we getting out of it? Okay. Number two is, I'm just sitting here wondering if we could generate a survey listing like common volunteer activities and just see how many people are willing to say, oh yeah, I do this, without names, just a point survey saying, we're really curious as a community and as PCCEP as to, what kinds of things you're involved in on your off time, or what do you like most to volunteer for? Because Vadim, I gotta tell you right now, I feel like we should be designing things to support the mental health of these officers. They have been under such extreme, intense scenarios, both with the protesters and COVID. My heart is telling me it's time to, do some healing. And maybe we can be a better support to their needs rather than sometimes sounding like we need to have them do all of this for us. We need to do something for them as well. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, is I really would like to create something that would bring us together in a non-hostile conversation about what exactly do people do, within the Bureau. I don't know all they do, and I'd have to probably be on 100 newsletters to figure it out, but maybe we could generate a survey and just ask officers, if they want to fill it out, what do you like to do on your off time?
And I agree, we can do a survey or something like that.
Well,
Mhm.
yeah,
And just one second. We're running a little bit over time, so let me take Trevi here real quick, and then.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
I want to follow up on what Mary Claire said. I've been to a lot of events, the Breaking Bread events, where there's like 100 police officers at a time. That's on their time, engaging with the community. I have been to quite a few events that were put on by the gun violence reduction team. I've been to basketball games. I've been to meals. They took kids in the community to the Blazer game, and it's very organic. I mean, the police officers that I know, which are a lot, I'd say almost every single one of them does some kind of volunteer work. In fact, I know one that he and his wife regularly have been buying groceries for people for 2 years. They don't have kids, and so I really want to let you know that this is just my experience. I probably know by face and name maybe 100 officers, and they all do some kind of volunteer work. In fact, that's where I've met a lot of them, is at these kind of events. And the other thing I wanted to say is when Chief Lavelle started talking after he got the chief of police, he said his focus, and I've been in several meetings where he's been there, his focus really is on community policing. That's really, really important to him. It's not just saying those words. It really matters to him. That's the kind of person he is. So I think that's really positive for us if we're wanting to create that, because all the ones I've known are very much like that. And I couldn't tell you the statistics, but I can tell you the ones I've met, that's what they're doing.
And so do you think that would be a positive if it's like recognized that they do it and then have some time with which maybe they would be allowed to do that as part of their work? Or do you think it's would be redundant?
Yes, I do. And I mean, I don't know if it's part of their work, but certainly the recognition of that. I mean, the things that I know that they're doing. I went, this was last summer, to the, I think it's called NOLA. It's the Native American place where they have the school. The whole gun violence reduction team was there, and they spent the day there, and they played basketball with these kids, and just the love. And then they had a big meal together. I mean, I think that would be wonderful to recognize that, because that's really there. And sometimes it gets lost because there's people doing other things, slapping cell phones out of people's hands and all these kind of things. But there is a tremendous amount of love and caring for the community that's organic, that just happens on its own. And I think that's good to recognize.
Thank you, Trevi.
Yeah.
Leah, with 2 more people, and then we'll call it a day. Leah?
Yeah, that all sounds great to me. I think having surveys for interests sounds really interesting, and then maybe also giving those surveys to the area, the community of interest, and see where they overlap. But then also having a structure for the police to volunteer in the work. I think some corporations do that, and to encourage their employees to volunteer and to track that. So we could look at the structure that they use for volunteering, like Nike, I think, does it.
Yeah, a lot of companies do that as well. Barbara, I saw you had your hand up and it went down. If you have any comments, you'll be the last person to speak today. Nope. Okay. Thanks, Barbara. All right. So I'll follow up with, yes, Mary Claire.
Vadim, can I, before you close, I had hoped to, I didn't see your agenda before, but I would like to get on the agenda. It is the Settlement Agreement and Policy Subcommittee, and I don't think we've yet spent much, time on policies. And I had an inquiry about the status of the procedural justice one, that the recommendation, and we have a draft that, I want to share with the committee at some point and talk about. I found it interesting that one of the comments or one of the suggestions for that Lackawanna is making to be incorporated is about the policy review system, when the committee hasn't even yet tried out the process we have. And I think we, without changing it, I think, we have a proposal to involve PCCEP and the subcommittee in our process. And so before going off making a suggestion, I think it would behoove you to, once again, work with us, see if, our system, which, like I said, we have a proposal here that we would, meet with this committee quarterly, if that's what you chose, to give you an update on the policies. We would present routine updates on where we are with the policies. It's a spreadsheet that shows what policies are being worked on and, where they stand and what the timeframes are in terms of whether they're put up for universal review or their second review or executive reconciliation, which is the process in between the first and second, where we take the comments, we incorporate those that are appropriate, and then put out another draft. So I think there is, ways that, we can, work together, but making a recommendation before you've even given us, or had an opportunity to try this system and work together on some of these policies, I think, you know, is premature. So we do have the procedural justice. If you want to wait till next month, I know that Marcia had written asking where it was. So, but if obviously we don't have time tonight, but if we can make that an agenda item for next committee, I think it would be, you know, a good start to show that, you know, what the Bureau has done with your recommendation. You know, people say we don't know what goes on. Well, you know, here to tell you, we're more than happy to keep you apprised of, you know, all the things that, you know, where we are on all these different recommendations you make. But, you know, it takes time to develop policy, and frankly, you know, the policy team has been taken away recently because of the changes at the state legislature and things that are going on in the street. We've had to turn the focus away from developing new ones to revising the ones we have, such as, you know, making sure that the word chokehold, you know, that the prohibition against chokeholds is articulated more clearly in our policy. It's always been, you know, disallowed in our policy except under deadly force circumstances, but we want to make that more clear. So, you know, I want people to understand the system. You know, policy making isn't something that you do overnight. My policy team ends up, you know, when we took your suggestion, then they do research around, you know, the country to see what other cities might have, you know, policies in this regard. And interestingly enough, you know, it's a dearth of procedural justice policies in police bureaus around the country. So this is sort of unprecedented that we're, you know, developing this one. So, you know, Baltimore has a draft and we looked at that, but, you know, there's all sorts of work that goes into these, and would be happy to share with you and then invite you to, you know, contribute to that process as well. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That sounds good. Do you want to just email it to me and Amy and Yolanda? I'm not sure exactly who's on the committee at this point, but it might be those 4 individuals. And then
yeah, I just want to make clear, I mean, we were prepared. I had sent it to Judith today, so if it came up tonight. The only thing I would caution is this is a first draft. It hasn't even been, you know, frankly, we met with the chief's office this morning because that's part of our process. Is once we develop a policy, it obviously has to, be, you know, be reviewed by the chief and his executive staff. So we have a policy team once a month. And so we brought it to them this morning, and they, you know, authorized me to bring it to you, but with the caveat that this is the first draft. I don't want people, when, you know, if it gets out on the PCCEP website or whatever, thinking this is, you know, a done deal. It's not. It's just the first, you know, start at it. As I said, the city attorney hasn't even played their role yet in terms of looking at it. We just wanted to get you in at the outset because you suggested the policy. So as long as everybody knows that whatever we send, I mean, it's got draft all over it, but it's not anywhere near.
Do you want to be on the agenda for our next meeting and talk about it? You could get it to us in advance and we could give it to members, and then people could review it.
Yep, and then that would be great.
Okay.
And then I think that, you know, I would ask you to consider whether there's a time at every meeting that we either update you, or every, you know, quarterly meetings or whatever. If you want to be involved in the policy piece, then there has to be time in your agenda to, you know, get an update and to give us feedback and whatever. And so we're, you know, seeking that, welcome it. And so just want to be able to institutionalize some process. So
sounds good.
Mary Claire, so I can send it to folks?
I would just send it to the members of this committee.
Okay. Also, I have a question, which is, well, just a suggestion is when people are sending things back and forth about PCCEP, please CC Theo or Claudia or me or all 3 of us, because it's really hard to keep track of what's happening. And, you know, I'm hearing a lot of comments about there not being enough staff. There's a lot of staff on this committee, but it's also a lot of confusion. So if you keep us in the loop, we can do a better job of staffing the committee. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody. I look forward to working with some of y'all on the issues we discussed, as well as looking forward to a partnership on the policies with Mary Claire and her staff as well, and the policy people. Y'all take care. Have a good day.
Thank you,
Talk to you
everyone.
soon. Love the background, Jared. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
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 Mhm.